His assistant, one George Kemp, who was a Cardiff citizen at the time,
suggested that the Bristol Channel would be the perfect place to test out his invention. Mr. Speaker, on 11th and 12th of May in 1896, the experiment was carried out to transmit on a flat home, an island halfway across the channel. Mr. Speaker, he began sending messages out into the airwaves. But unfortunately, this initial experiment failed. Mr. Speaker, until 1896, the experiment, however, succeeded with significant progress. Mr. Speaker, the instrument was rung out, and he sent out this initial phrase, "Can you hear me?" Mr. Speaker, this message was immediately received. Mr. Speaker, the historic account has it that Braindown Fort, which was just south of Weston-super-Mare, became the stage where he set up its base. Mr. Speaker, they went out to send messages about 10 miles further down, which at the time became a record of transmission via a wireless apparatus. Mr. Speaker, after this initial humbling success, Macaulay went on to establish what became the Wireless Telegraph and Signal Company some 6 months later. And in 1922, Mr. Speaker, this company became one of the 6 founders of what has since become known as the British Broadcasting Corporation in 1922. Mr. Speaker, each year, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, that's UNESCO, celebrates World Radio Day by planning activities with broadcasters, organizations and communities across the world. Mr. Speaker, the first official World Radio Day was celebrated in the year 2012. Mr. Speaker, this year, the theme adopted for the celebration is Radio and Peace. Mr. Speaker, despite being more than a radio remains one of the most widely used platforms for social interaction, information exchange, and education. It has been used to assist people, notably youth, in having conversations about issues that concern them. It provides journalists with a forum to report the truth and share their stories. And it has also helped to save lives during natural and man-made disasters. Mr. Speaker, radio technology has evolved since its inception, and today we have the luxury of streaming via internet radio. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, radio broadcasts are carried through other new media channels in order to reach the technologically advanced population of the world. In Ghana, Mr. Speaker, according to historical accounts, radio emerged onto the scenes on 31st July 1935. Mr. Speaker, this was introduced by Governor Hudson at the time. He was affectionately called the Sunshine Governor. Mr. Speaker, he was assisted by a British engineer, one Mr. F.A.W. Byron. On that 43rd day, Mr. Speaker, at 17 hours GMT, a gramophone records comprising of martial and live music were relayed
And exactly at 17:45 GMT, Mr. Speaker, the voice of Arnold Hudson, the then governor, came over the airwaves, and that then began the transmission of radio in Ghana, or in the Gold Coast, now Ghana. Mr. Speaker, the new broadcasting service was codenamed Radio Zoe, as in Zebra Oscar Yankee, and it was manned by 8 technicians and had a small bungalow on the 9th road near the Ridge Police Station here in Accra. Mr. Speaker, over the years, radio technologies has provided commercial opportunities to corporate organizations and individuals to invest in broadcasting for the financial gains that it offers. And Mr. Speaker, Ghana has had its fair share of the business the nature of radio has brought. Mr. Speaker, the data from the National Communications Authority indicates that at the third quarter of 2019, Mr. Speaker, there were as many as 477 radio stations authorized to operate in Ghana. Mr. Speaker, this number is made up of 31 public radio stations, 5 public foreign radio stations, 73 community radio stations, 21 campus radio stations, and 347 commercial radio stations in Ghana. Mr. Speaker, whilst acknowledging the important role of radio on this important day, which fell yesterday, Mr. Speaker, I want to deliberately make a call, and that is to the effect that we need to encourage the establishment of a lot of community radio establishments in our communities. Mr. Speaker, particularly because I'm mindful of the theme that has been chosen for this year, which is radio and peace. Mr. Speaker, my understanding is that the recognition of the ability of radio to fuel conflict and the ability of professional independent radio to instruct talks to bring peace is very paramount. Mr. Speaker, oftentimes, as members of Parliament who hail from rural communities, we rely on radio to disseminate information and to educate our constituents on happenings in metropolitan Accra. Mr. Speaker, the tedious nature of this communication makes it very difficult to use other means other than radio. And sometimes the difficulties that the networks go through to receive news in some of these remote areas makes radio very portable for our fishermen and farmers in the remote areas and in the rural areas to rely on radio to keep them updated. Mr. Speaker, even though community radio stations have unique setups which are expected to be owned and run by specific communities, they require to be authorized by the National Communications Authority. Mr. Speaker, the data from NCA, again from the third quarter of 2019, show that out of the 73 rural radio, community radio stations that have been authorized to operate, Mr. Speaker, only 59 are operating. Mr. Speaker, the number of radio stations that are community radio stations that are permitted to operate vis-a-vis population show clearly that there is a deficit in establishing community radio which offers an easy access to reaching out to our various communities in the rural areas. Mr. Speaker, due to the portability of radio and its accoutrements, Mr. Speaker, we have all had experiences where at one time or the other we have had to rely on radio in our farms. Mr. Speaker, in order to fortify my point in calling for a more number of community radio establishments. I'll make reference to 2 academic publications by 2 young men in our universities. Mr. Speaker, in 2022, Kankam and Atu published an academic publication in the journal called Global Knowledge, Memory Communication under the topic, The Role of Community Radio in Information Dissemination Towards Youth Development in Ghana. Mr. Speaker, this paper established or found that community radio in Ghana had provided opportunity for youth engagement and entertainment, provided opportunity for education, as well as health awareness. And it has also been used to advocate for infrastructure, business, and skills development, as well as provided opportunity for career and life coaching. Mr. Speaker, the research further established that radio stations do focus on empowering community participation in numerous development programs and thereby enhancing the capacities of the local people to work together to tackle a range of social inequalities such as discrimination, marginalization. Mr. Speaker, the second academic piece from these 2 academicians was also published in 2022 and published by Rutledge Taylor and Francis Group. And it was titled, Mr. Speaker, it was titled Community Radio as Information Dissemination Tool for Sustainable Rural Development in Ghana. Mr. Speaker, this second article found that community radio stations have provided opportunity for members involved in various stages of radio broadcasting in Ghana by using radios to tackle specific community needs and provide a platform for empowerment of community members. And most importantly, part of their findings indicated that community members were allowed to participate in development planning, which is key in sustainable development through the use of community radio. Mr. Speaker, prior to their studies, I have established that other research works by one Mohammed Faisal Ahmadu and Amin Al-Hassan in 2018 indicated that as far back as 2011, radios, community radios such as Radio Gaki and in the Saboba district, as well as Simli Radio, have significantly improved on the information sharing abilities as well as the livelihoods of the listeners within their catchment area. Mr. Speaker, it is based on the above that I want to urge the House to appreciate this of the influence that community radio have in our various constituencies and districts, and encourage the NCA to pay attention in licensing individuals and persons to establish community radio, which, Mr. Speaker, by so doing, will help policy implementation and also bring about community improvement through information dissemination. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity.
Very well. That brings us to the end of statements time for today. Honorable Deputy Leader. Can I bring proceedings to a close now? Sorry?
Mr. Speaker, with respect, today is Chocolate Day. And our colleague, Dr. Iwai Opoku,
you gave him the opportunity. He was not in the chamber. I didn't know that he has come.
Mr. Speaker, he is in.
He is back?
Yes, he's back.
Very well.
He's well seated and ready.
Honorable Member for Finsu South. Yes, you may read your statement on Chocolate Day.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to present a statement on...
Honorable Member Holder. Yes, Leader.
Mr. Speaker, some colleagues wanted to contribute to the statement made by Honorable Dapamepo. And Honorable wanted to make a comment, and Honorable Agaga.
No due difference to you, Leader. When the statement was read, I waited for about 2 minutes, looking left and right to see anybody wanting to. Before I announced, I was actually going to bring proceedings to a close when Leader drew my attention that the book was now in. I'm sorry, I've moved on already. I was looking for somebody to speak. There was nobody on his feet. Well, I've moved on already. Let's move on with this one. I'm sorry about that. Yes, you may continue.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to present a statement on the celebration of this year's National Chocolate Day to this August House. Mr. Speaker, on the occasion of the 2023 National Chocolate Day celebration, which falls today, 14th February, we wish to salute our gallant cocoa farmers and indeed all stakeholders, licensed buying companies, hauliers, agro-input dealers, processors, traders, cocoa value chain actors, policy makers, government officials, non-governmental organizations, foreign partners, and customers of cocoa who have contributed in diverse ways towards the sustenance of the cocoa industry. Mr. Speaker, the celebration will also not be complete if the celebrants are not reminded about the father of cocoa in Ghana, Tete Kwashe of blessed memory, who in 1879 brought cocoa beans from Fernando Po, now Equatorial Guinea, to Ghana. Mr. Speaker, the theme for this year's celebration is Eat Chocolate, Stay Healthy, and Grow Ghana. The concentration, however, is on how to provide the platform for artisanal cocoa makers in order to help create employment for our youth and create value along the chain. In this regard, Mr. Speaker, Ghana Cocoa Board must be commended for their effort in ensuring that the national targets of locally processing at least 50% of our annual production and increasing our per capita consumption from the current 0.5 kilograms to at least 1 kilogram are achieved. The Speaker, Cocoa Board is engaging relevant stake agencies to provide conducive working environment for artisanal chocolate manufacturers. Cocoa Board is also engaging a Belgian company to set up a chocolate academy to train and upgrade the technical skills of our artisanal chocolate makers. Mr. Speaker, cocoa is the backbone of the economy of this country, and therefore every Ghanaian is duty-bound to ensure the growth and sustainability of the industry. To ensure the success of the National Chocolate Day celebration, we encourage every Ghanaian, especially members of Parliament, to actively participate and support the celebration and cocoa consumption promotion campaigns. As members of Parliament, we can set the ball rolling by consuming at least a bar of chocolate every day, by serving cocoa drinks at all committee and caucus meetings, by using cocoa products as gifts of choice during Chocolate Week celebration and other special occasions, and by propagating the good news about the numerous health benefits of cocoa at any given opportunity. Mr. Speaker, the overwhelming health benefits of cocoa and cocoa products are well documented. Cocoa consumption can relieve stress, it reduces high blood pressure, it reduces risk of diabetes, it improves brain health, It helps with skin care and prevents cancer. Mr. Speaker, it is interesting to know that even cocoa roots from unproductive trees, which under normal circumstances would have been discarded along the value chain, have been used to develop bitters using alcohol from cocoa pulp juice. Quality assessments of the bitters have shown that cocoa roots contain significant amounts of useful chemicals with medicinal properties, including anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer, and aphrodisiac properties. Currently, the bitters are being produced on pilot scale and sold to consumers at the byproduct shop at Cocoa Research Institute of Ghana, TAFO, and response from consumers have been very encouraging. As we celebrate the Cocoa Day, Mr. Speaker, we must also not lose sight of the factors which militate against cocoa production. Mr. Speaker, in 2020-2021 cocoa season, cocoa production stood at 1,045,500 metric tons, the highest production ever in the country's history. Surprisingly, however, 1 year on, production has dropped from over 1 million tons to 683,268.9 metric tons in 2021-2022 season, representing 34.6% decline, the lowest production since 2009-2010. Mr. Speaker, several factors may account for the sharp decline, but principal amongst them is the effect of illegal mining, popularly referred to as galamsey. Mr. Speaker, if the rate of destruction of cocoa farms as a result of galamsey activities is allowed to continue, in no time, our enviable position as the second largest producer of quality premium cocoa in the world will be lost, and there will be very little to celebrate in future. Mr. Speaker, to ensure the availability of adequate quality cocoa beans for local processing and export, farmers must be encouraged to adopt the productivity enhancement programs introduced by Cocoa Board in 2017. The soil moisture stress in cocoa farms as a result of climate change must also be addressed. Ghana Cocoa Board must endeavor to extend the pilot irrigation program started in 2017 to cover many more medium and large-scale farmers. Mr. Speaker, Cocoa Research Institute of Ghana, the research wing of Cocoa Board, must also intensify ongoing research in the development of drought-resistant or tolerant cocoa varieties that suit marginal cocoa growing areas of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, to motivate farmers to stick to cocoa farming, stop ceding their cocoa farms to other competing land uses, particularly illegal mining and rubber cultivation, Cocoa Farmers Pension Scheme, which was piloted in the Western South and Ashanti region, must also be extended to cover all cocoa growing regions as soon as practicable. This will also help our cherished cocoa farmers to enjoy decent and sustainable pension when they retire from active cocoa farming. Let us support sustainable production of cocoa and local processing of cocoa beans. Let us patronize made in Ghana chocolate and cocoa products. Mr. Speaker, let us say no to the destruction of cocoa farms for galamsey activities. Let us say no to the pollution of our water bodies, which serve as sources of water for irrigation and for sources of water for pest control and for irrigation of cocoa farms. Let us say no to unapproved pesticides and fertilizers on cocoa. Let us say no to smuggling of cocoa beans across the borders and also smuggling of pesticides and fertilizer meant for cocoa farmers in Ghana. Long live our cherished cocoa farmers. Long live the Tekwash's memories. Long live National Chocolate Day. Long live Mother Ghana. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, Ranking Member.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the statement ably made by our colleague on the National Cocoa Day, the National Chocolate Day. Mr. Speaker, the theme for the celebration, Eat Chocolate, Stay Healthy, and Grow Ghana, is very, very important. Indeed, when Ghanaians eat chocolate, we are consuming what is produced in our country, and the benefits are enormous. We have benefits in respect of health, and then numerous economic benefits. But, Mr. Speaker, it is important for all of us to understand that consumption of chocolate will only lead to growth in our country if the cocoa that is used in the production of the chocolate is produced in Ghana here. The maker of the statement indicated that cocoa production peaked in 2021 at 1,045,000 metric tons. Unfortunately, in 2021-22 cocoa season, the figure dropped to 683,000, 36.4% decline. Mr. Speaker, in that year, Ghana collateralized 640,000 out of the 683 for the syndicated facility for the operations of cocoa in our country, leaving Ghana 43,000 tons of cocoa. Mr. Speaker, under the BUI agreement, we service the facility with 30,000 tons annually. And so when you take the 30,000 out, Ghana is left with just 13,000 tons for our local processes. The capacity of our local processes is around 400,000 tons, meaning that these companies can only survive if they import cocoa from Cote d'Ivoire and other cocoa producing countries before they can produce chocolate for us in this country. So even though we may be consuming chocolate, the full benefits will not be seen in our country because the major raw material is imported from outside. It is therefore important for all of us to look at how we can improve significantly upon cocoa production in our country. Mr. Speaker, the maker of the statement also spoke about one of the interventions being rolled out by government to boost cocoa production, to motivate our farmers and indeed the young generation to stay into cocoa production. And that was the Cocoa Farmers Pension Scheme. Yes, Mr. Speaker, the Cocoa Board law provides for the establishment of this scheme, specifically under Section 26 of the Cocoa Board Act. Well, Mr. Speaker, Section 26(3) of the Act provides that there should be a legislative instrument to provide regulations for the pension scheme. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, the scheme has been announced. Board of Trustees has been inaugurated. Mr. Speaker, the board was inaugurated. I attended the inauguration myself. But the legislative instrument to regulate the scheme has not been passed by this House. And so, Mr. Speaker, we are urging on Cocoa Board and indeed the Ministry of Agriculture to bring the legislative instruments to enable us fully operationalize the scheme to enable cocoa farmers benefit fully from that particular scheme. Mr. Speaker, the maker of the statement indicated that this pension scheme has been piloted in 2 regions. Mr. Speaker, what happened in those 2 regions was the capturing of the data as this House approved the cocoa rehabilitation project, and allocation was made in that for the capturing of the data. Mr. Speaker, another important point made by the maker of the statement has to do with the reason he assigned for the decline of cocoa production in this country, which is very, very important. The maker of the statement is saying that cocoa production is declining principally because of illegal mining, that farmers are ceding their farms to these illegal miners to destroy them for this, the activities, the so-called galamsey. Mr. Speaker, my problem with this canker of illegal mining is this. The 1992 Constitution is clear on who it should be in charge of minerals in this country. Specifically, Article 257, Clause 6, provides that minerals within the boundaries of Ghana are vested in the President, for the President to protect for the upcoming generation. If people are illegally harnessing these resources to the extent of destroying other resources of this nation, Mr. Speaker, then there is something wrong. And so there is the need for all of us to urge His Excellency the President of the Republic of Ghana to leave no stone unturned, because that is his mandate. It is a power given to him by the Constitution of Ghana. If he sits aloof, unconcerned, for these resources to be destroyed during his time, history will never forgive Mr. President. So we are urging His Excellency the President that this is a mandate bestowed on him by the Constitution of this country. And we, the representative of the people here, we are urging him to leave no stone unturned.
Honorable, did you say members of representative here?
Yeah.
They should be spoken to. The members here, a lot of them are involved in the illegal mining.
Mr. Speaker, you are the Mr. Speaker, so you know more than I know in respect of those who are involved.
To know in your constituency
But
those who are
since I don't know, what I will do is that I'm speaking to what the law says, that Mr. President should be in charge. And once he's in charge, he should make sure that he owes us a responsibility to protect these resources, not for us alone, for Napo and his people to enjoy, and our children too must come and inherit same. That is the element I'm advancing. And so, Mr. Speaker, today is a good day. Chocolate is for the benefit of all of us. And we all know that cocoa plays a very critical role in the economy of our country. And so when we are celebrating the day, we must also be concerned about the very people who produce this golden pot for us. Mr. Speaker, another point that must be considered is the cocoa pricing in the country. It is so important that can motivate our farmers to produce a lot of cocoa for us in this country. Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, in the determination of the producer price of cocoa, we do not consider inflation. And this is not just for this year. It is something that has been done over the years. And so when the prices of goods and services go up, and these farmers are on the same, their real income falls significantly, and they are unable to cope with the environment. Therefore, most of them are deterred, they are discouraged from staying in our rural communities to produce the cocoa for us. Mr. Speaker, consumption of chocolate is important. It will benefit all of us. As members of Parliament, as the maker of the statement said, that we should be drinking cocoa, we should be buying, we should be eating cocoa every day. But Mr. Speaker, even on this special day, last year when we were celebrating the same day, when I was entering the chamber, I saw cocoa drinks all over for members to have a taste of what was happening. So when I was coming this morning, I called the chairman of our committee that today is the chocolate day. What arrangement have we made towards the celebration? At least to let members who have for 1 year, who have not tasted chocolate anywhere for 1 year, to have a taste of it. So that when they go out there, they can testify to the people that there is the need for all of us to consume this. Mr. Speaker, I was told that the maker of the statement After making the statement today, we have to make some disclosures in respect of chocolate in his custody, so that members will have a better appreciation of the statement he made. Mr. Speaker, after making the statement, the maker did not disclose anything in his custody in respect of the World Chocolate Day. If there is something he hasn't said, let us understand, because today is a special day. My constituents are asking me for chocolate. They want to have chocolate, especially when this house approved a facility for us to buy chocolate for school children, and the school children are not getting the chocolate. Members must be concerned, because when you go to the constituencies, the children are asking you, where are the chocolates you said you were going to buy for us? Mr. Speaker, in that facility, we approved $5 million for the purchase of chocolate for school children in this country. Mr. Speaker, the money has been assessed, it has been taken by Cocoa Board, but we have not seen the chocolate in our schools. So we have to use the day to remind them that having approved for them $5 million for the purchase of chocolate, the chocolate might be sent to the school children wherever they are, so that our children can also have the taste and then be consuming chocolate when they grow up and then make their own incomes. On this note, Mr. Speaker, I thank you very much for giving me the opportunity and urge the House and urge Mr. Speaker to prevail upon Cocoa Board, having presided over the approval of that quantum of money for the purchase of chocolate, that the money be utilized to purchase chocolate and distributed to our school children, so that they will know that their representative here, when they approve monies, they follow up to ensure that monies approved are used in the best interest of the people of this country. Thank you for indulging me, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the statement ably made by my colleague. Mr. Speaker, the sentiments expressed by my colleagues in this House in respect of the World Chocolate Day and the need for us to patronize made in Ghana chocolate, its impact on our national economy, and, Mr. Speaker, the collective efforts to indigenize our national economy, Mr. Speaker, are all very welcoming, and I associate myself with those sentiments. Mr. Speaker, secondly, I believe that it is trite knowledge when I make the point that there is a direct correlation between mining generally, the small-scale mining sector in particular, and, Mr. Speaker, if I may add, the extractive industry on cocoa production and the cocoa industry. Mr. Speaker, I also want to associate myself, and I agree with my colleague from the other side, that the President has a duty, a constitutional duty, a legal duty to preserve and protect the environment of our country. But, Mr. Speaker, in all humility and modesty, as the minister charged with the responsibility of assisting the President to regulate the mining sector of our country, Mr. Speaker, I want to submit and do so very forcefully that the President is doing just that. Mr. Speaker, I have had multiple occasions to update this House on the effort being made by government to come to grips with the issue of illegal mining in our country. And, Mr. Speaker, I am happy to report to the House today that data from the Ministry of Water Resources and Sanitation indicates that the turbidity levels of the major river bodies of our country are improving. And it suggests that the many interventions government is put in place to resolve the issue of illegal small-scale mining, Mr. Speaker, including but not limited to the interventions of community mining, the interventions of
Honorable
introducing.
Minister, kindly hold on. Yes, Honorable Pudo, are you on a point of order?
Mr. Speaker, I want to draw the attention of my colleague to the fact that today is not World Chocolate Day. World Chocolate Day
Who's
falls.
attending? Who made
falls-
that?
That was what he said.
Who said that? The Honorable Minister.
He said today is World Chocolate Day, but that's not so.
Very
It
well.
is July 7th. July 7th. Today is Valentine's Day, and we have decided to call it Ghana Chocolate Day. So
Honorable
World
members.
Chocolate Day falls on July the 7th, 2023.
The statement before me says National Chocolate Day. So, is it the minister on his feet who said World Chocolate Day?
But he said world.
Very well. Point well noted. Honorable Minister, make the correction.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the senior colleague for his correction. Mr. Speaker, who is elegantly attired in his kente. I thank him. So, National Chocolate Day. Mr. Speaker, about the subject of illegal small-scale mining. Mr. Speaker, and I speak to that matter because the maker of the statement speaks about it extensively, and contributors to the statement have also dwelt on the issue of illegal small-scale mining and its impact on the cocoa industry, and rightly so, Mr. Speaker. And I was making the point that the many interventions that have been rolled out by government have resulted in the reduction in the turbidity levels of the major river bodies of our country. And Mr. Speaker, we know the history of the small-scale mining sector and how we promulgated laws in the 80s to regularize and make that sector lawful and make an attempt to build a small-scale mining industry in our country and the problems we've had over the years. Mr. Speaker, I want to conclude by assuring the House that government is taking all necessary measures and will continue to do so to ensure that we sanitize this sector, Mr. Speaker, we regularize this sector, we come to grips with the small-scale mining sector, and therefore get to a situation where we will have a vibrant, responsible mining sector in our country, running concurrently with a robust cocoa industry in our country, where farmers do not sell their cocoa farms for miners and therefore result in a lack of productivity in the cocoa industry. Mr. Speaker, you made a point of an orbiter. You made a point on the side which I want to dwell on before I conclude, which is that, Mr. Speaker, this fight must be a collective fight. This fight must be a fight for all sides. It must be a fight for this side of the House and the other side of the House, Mr. Speaker. It must be a fight for all the stakeholders in our country. And indeed, it must be a fight for the citizens or indigents of mining communities of our country. And Mr. Speaker, the House be rest assured that the President is very mindful of his legal and constitutional obligations. Mr. Speaker, and the President is discharging these obligations diligently and effectively. And by the grace of God, Mr. Speaker, under the watch of President Akufo-Addo, we will resolve this age-old problem of illegal small-scale mining, Galamsey, and have our cocoa sector thrive and have chocolate flourish in our country. Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, member for us.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this statement, reflecting our celebration of the National Chocolate Day, which we have instituted in this country since 2005, to coincide with the Valentine's Day, which used to be a day young people would use to violate some of the fundamental ethical rules in this country. The Speaker, this day has become so important because it touches on the very nerve of this country. We have been dependent so much on the production and sale of cocoa in this country for a considerable long time, and has become the foundation of our economy. And Mr. Speaker, whatever we must do to make sure cocoa consumption becomes a part of the life of the Ghanaian, we just have to do it. And so instituting this day is critical, and it touches on the nerve of our economy, and I'll encourage all young people to begin to see this day as their own contribution to make sure cocoa consumption is a part of our household in everyday life. not just for the day of the Chocolate Day celebration. Mr. Speaker, in 1962, 5 countries, including Ghana, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Cameroon, Brazil, decided to come together to form the alliance of cocoa-producing countries. The major idea was to produce in these countries to export to others, or in other words, to create market outside the country so others can consume, not necessarily to promote consumption in our own countries. With time, the number of countries grew up to 13 countries, Mr. Speaker, but still with the foundation, the fundamental rule up to 1991 that we wanted to produce cocoa and sell outside. Until 2005, when we decided that producing and selling outside should not necessarily be the foundation of our reason for producing cocoa in this country. We decided that we will promote the consumption of cocoa in this country. Mr. Speaker, this decision is critical, and it's important for all of us to begin thinking about consumption of cocoa beyond the fact that we celebrate the day in this country. Mr. Speaker, that calls for new initiatives, not just a single day, but new initiatives that will afford us the ability to promote cocoa consumption and sale of cocoa within and outside the country. Mr. Speaker, a few months ago, a number of us, including the 2 leaders, I joined them. We went to Brazil to meet the European Parliament. One of their critical reasons for attempting to not buy from Ghana cocoa, to buy from Ghana our cocoa, were 2 reasons. One, the fact that we were using child labor, and the second was that we were destroying our cocoa with illegal mining effects, so that in the end, the quality of the cocoa will not be the kind of cocoa they wanted, or the kind of fruits they wanted to buy from Ghana. This because it took us a very long discussion and a lot of persuasion to get the European Union to agree to buy from Ghana and not to place sanctions on the sale or on the purchase of cocoa from Ghana. Mr. Speaker, it tells us one story, that we don't seem to understand that cocoa is very fundamental to our economy, and that we are yet to discover the need for us to materialize the conception of consumption of cocoa in our overall development process. Mr. Speaker, on this day, which is a very important day for all of us, I want to wish our cocoa producers the very best. They are the reason why we have Ghana producing cocoa in the quantity we produce. They are the reason why we have benefited so much, including scholarships for people to go and study. And it's important that we celebrate the cocoa producers in this country and wish them well, and encourage governments all over, not just this government, to do much more than we are doing to our cocoa farmers, because it is important for us to encourage them and to get them to produce more. As they produce more, Ghana earns more, and as we earn more, we have a stronger economy. So, Mr. Speaker, rather than seeing it as a day we go about celebrating and greeting friends and buying cocoa, let us also see it as one fundamental reason
to shore up revenue, knowing where cocoa farming came from, and why we must take the town Mampong Equiaping seriously when we talk about cocoa. Mr. Speaker, the export of 12 cocoa in the colonial era by Nana John Kweku Eyu of Mampong Equiaping, who then was the person that brought together people to form the Cocoa Farmers Union. At that time, there was no cocoa board. And I repeat the name. Nana John Kweku Eyu, not Ayu, Eyu of Mampong Equiaping. Mr. Speaker, historically, Nana John Kweku Eyu, after Tete Kwashi, who had attempted to sow cocoa in Osu, however failed, decided to relocate to Mampong Equiaping. He did the first farming, And to industrialize it, Nana John Kweku Eyu to bring cocoa farmers together. He exported 12 cocoa to England. Then, because there was no cocoa board, it was then that the colonial masters saw the need that cocoa has significant interest in business of Europe. And for that matter, Mampo Ekuapem became a center of cocoa production, which was pioneered by Tete Kwashi and industrialized by Nana John Kweku Eyu. Mr. Speaker, as I speak, Mampo Ekuapem has been abandoned. A day like this, you would expect the cocoa board to make historical activities to bring Ghana and attention to cocoa in Mampo. Mr. Speaker, this is not done. So I join in this debate to draw the attention of the public and, for that matter, cocoa board. Not only for us to debate and let this day die off, but to make it significant historical activity in Mampo Ekuapem. Mr. Speaker, having said so, they attempted to put a museum in Mampo Ekuapem by Ministry of Tourism or Tourist Authority and Cocoa Board. As I speak now, the museum has not been completed. It's more so about being abandoned, but the intention was very good. Take this day as a solemn day, reflect upon it, and see the need to complete the museum in Mampo Ekuapem. More so, you look at the farm that historically is for students to learn from with regards to Tete Kwashi's farm. The roads to that place is so terrible, extremely terrible, and you would expect that with cocoa board and cocoa roads, they will see the need to construct that road and attract tourists and keep the history. Mr. Speaker, I've only brought these historical perspectives to bear to the debate, saying that Tete Kwashi must be hailed, and cocoa was industrialized by Nana John Kweku Eyu. He's the one who formed the Cocoa Farmers Union in the Gold Coast. At that time of which there was no cocoa board, he led the export of cocoa 12 times to England. And at the time, he also told farmers that they are not going to sell cocoa again in the country to the colonial authorities until the shoot disease and others are taken care of. And then they saw that cocoa had a significant impact. So we celebrate this day by remembering Tete Kwashi, Nana John Kweku Eyu, and Mampo Ekuapem. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have taught you this.
Very well. Thank you, honourable members. That brings us to the end of statement time today. We will now return to public business, but I'll suspend sitting for 5 minutes and I'll resume. Sitting is suspended for 5 minutes.
Mommy, you fish can see about Kotoso. People got sending me sick from Lemonade Finance. While Brian did the shit and let me £10.
Lemonade Finance.
Say they're sending money back home from UK, Canada, and now US. I accepted a instant charges. Exchange waiting in so yeah. Unbeatable. We should me promo code Dr. Like Nenya £10, $10, and $10 Canadian for the first transaction. Would you send this guy a coffee? Download to Lemonade Finance.
Item 8A, presentation of papers. First reading of bills. A, Wildlife Resources Management Bill 2022 by the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources. Item 8A.
Right, Honourable Speaker, I rise to seek leave to withdraw the Wildlife Resources Management Bill 2020, which was laid in the last meeting of this Parliament. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. Minority Bench. The Honourable Minister is seeking leave to withdraw a bill laid in the last meeting. Do you have any objection to that?
Mr. Speaker, we don't have any objection to that.
Very well. Leave is granted for the bill previously laid to be withdrawn, and the referral to the committee is also hereby annulled. Now you may. Presentation of the first reading. Yes, Honourable Minister.
An act to consolidate and revise the laws relating to wildlife and protected areas, provide for the implementation of international conventions on wildlife to which Ghana is a signatory and for related matters.
The bill is read the first time and referred to the Committee on Lands and Forestry for consideration and report. Yes, what next?
Mr. Speaker, item 24 on page 16. Item 24 on page 16.
Item 24. Is the bill ready now? The last Friday, we deferred consideration because the bill was not available. Is the bill available now before I call it?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Item 24, the National Vaccine Institute Bill 2022 at the consideration stage. Very well. There are no advertise amendments in respect of clauses 1 to 15. Clauses 1 to 15. You may mention them, so I'll put a question on them together. Yes. Clause 1.
Establishment of the National Vaccine Institute.
Clause 2.
Object of the Institute.
Clause 3.
Functions of the Institute.
Clause 4.
Governing body of the Institute.
Clause 5.
Duties and liabilities of a member of the board.
Clause 6.
Tenure of office of members of the board.
Clause 7.
Meetings of the board.
Clause 8.
Disclosure of interest.
Clause 9.
Establishment of committees.
Clause 10.
Allowances.
Clause 11.
Policy directives.
Clause 12.
Chief Executive Officer of the Institute.
Clause 13.
Functions of the Chief Executive Officer.
Clause 14.
Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the Institute.
Clause 15.
Functions of the Deputy Chief Executive Officer.
Honourable members, there are no advertised amendments to all the listed clauses. Unless any member wishes to propose any amendments to any of them, I'll put the question. All in favour of clauses 1 to 15 of the bill being part of the bill, so aye. Say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. Clauses 1 to 15 of the bill are hereby ordered to form part of the bill. Clause 16.
Secretary to the board.
Yes, Chairman of the Committee.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, clause 16, the line 1 would remain. Previously stated to be amended. We humbly submit that line 1 remain. So the clause remain as the board shall designate the staff of the institute who is a lawyer of not less than 5 years at the bar as secretary to the board.
No.
That is good.
Honourable members, the proposed amendment is for the consideration of the House. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I thought the chairman of the committee will at least explain to us why this amendment. Mr. Speaker, this is particularly important because the secretary of the board, per the original bill before us, is supposed to be a staff of the institute. However, this amendment makes it open-ended, that any lawyer with 5 years at the bar is qualified to be nominated as secretary of the board. Mr. Speaker, I think this is particularly important because this is the secretary of the institute, the secretary of the board. The secretary of the board should have some knowledge of the industry, and you cannot make it open-ended to bring someone from outside. Mr. Speaker, this amendment is a bit problematic. I think we will need further understanding as to why they have decided to make it open-ended and not to restrict it to a member of staff of the institute that is second to appoint to the board. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, we've had some consultations, and I think the position now will be that subclause 1 line 1 will delete, and then will delete a staff of the institute who is.
So that it will read.
So it will read. Taking note, we will not stand. We would let the amendment proceed. We will not withdraw the. Yes.
The question is, why do you want a person who is not a member of the institute, even if he's